I think okay. I clicked go live in YouTube. So let's oh, I think we got it.
Did we?
I think so. Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, yeah, we're good. I see it on YouTube.
Okay.
Okay. Yay.
Yay. Oh my God, that was so
That was
fucking
so
stressful.
stressful. I mean, I didn't even do a lot and that was still stressful. But hi.
Hello,
Hello.
listeners.
Hi, listeners. How's it going? Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And I think someone said that it's 2 a.m. where they are right now. Is that right?
Yeah, sorry if we spammed you from our socials.
It's that's kind of our job. We're
It's our
trying to get
job.
people to watch it, but we're so happy that all of you showed up tonight to watch us, talk about the final two episodes of Atla, the one that started it all.
It's
Like
crazy. It's
we were
so crazy.
we were just talking before all this, being like, oh my God, we're here. Like, this is nuts. Like that here we are, like 3 seasons later, finishing up the series that, sparked our love for this amazing universe.
Yeah. It's crazy because this was like the first episode we like our first episode of the podcast was recapping the premiere episode, and now we're at the very end of the series. So it's really surreal. It's really surreal, but we're happy that we have some people joining us tonight.
It really does mean a lot, the fact that like we have what, 5 people in the chat right now watching us. Just
Mm-hmm. Yep.
like we really appreciate that.
Hello,
You know,
Emily. Hello, Thomas. Hello, Mr. Eli. Hey, everyone.
hi. Oh, people want to see my tattoo. Well, since you all
Oh,
just asked so nicely.
let's show it.
All right, it's kind of hard to do it right
Oh, look at
here, but
that.
it's the Korosami scene.
Those
So
colors are really popping out.
yeah, definitely like I definitely noticed with like the arms definitely popping out a lot more
Mm-hmm.
detail wise. My artist did a fantastic job. The yellow I feel like hasn't quite shown up a lot just yet, but I've only had it for a week, so I can't be too picky about that. Let me grab Appa.
Oh my God.
So I was at Steel City Comic Con this past weekend, and I got me an Appa. I saw this big deluxe plushie Appa, and I'm like, I'm gonna get that plushie. And then they pulled it down. It's like it's $100. I'm like, I am not getting that plushie, but I'll get the smaller one. So I dropped
Yeah,
$50 on
I
this, but
want
it's
I want
totally
a
worth it.
I want a giant Appa, a little Momo, a little Pabu, and then another giant Naga.
Are you kidding me? I would want a giant. I would love a giant Naga and a giant Appa. Like, give me both. I
And a
want.
giant Pabu.
And just give me all this test, all the plushies. I'm kind of annoyed they don't really have a lot of like core merchandise. Period. I mean, it's an untapped market of the cute animals. I mean, hey, I would even want a
Yeah,
turtle duck. I would want a turtle duck plushie. Are
absolutely.
you kidding me?
I'm waiting for the Avatar Studio series where the animal spirit guide is a turtle duck.
I didn't even think of that, and
I'm
I need
just saying.
it.
I'm just saying. Fucking Google
I
Docs keeps autocorrecting metal bend to metal band, which is, like a metal band like jewelry or a metal band like name a
mm,
metal band. I don't know.
So I have a little friend with me here tonight, and instead of just my Avatar merchandise being limited to my earrings, my permanent merchandise on my arm, and now I have a plushie that also proves my tangible love for this series.
It's so
Now
cute.
you're next.
Yeah, I am next. Yeah, so we're gonna get started here in a little bit. For those of you tuning in, this is just gonna be like a regular recap episode. The only difference is if you have any thoughts, theories, reactions to what we're talking about, you want to jump in and on the discussion, drop something in the chat, and we'll try and keep an eye on it. No promises because we have like a lot of
We have a
screens
lot
and a
of
lot of
yeah,
shit
we have a
going
lot
on
of
right
things
now. But
open. We have like 50 different tabs open. Like
yeah,
it's just how
yeah.
these things go.
But if we have some unanswered like questions or something by the end of the show, we'll go through and talk about it. But
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, very excited.
here we
um
are.
Here we
Oh my
are.
goodness, look at us. Here's the
Look at us.
obligatory Paul Rudd reference that we make that has just become a running joke
Who'd
between
imagine? Not me.
Not me. Oh my goodness. Are we ready to dive into this?
I think we're ready.
Emotionally, I'm not sure, but we'll find out. I,
We're gonna be okay.
I
We're gonna
choked
be
up
fine.
twice watching those episodes last night, so
It's wait. Well, I'll talk about it on
we'll talk.
on the episode.
We have, there's a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
So,
Cool. All right, Kayla, you ready to go?
all right, let's do this.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. And I am rolling.
Awesome. So
All right,
here's
final Atla recap whenever you are ready, Kayla.
all right. Welcome to episode 68 of the Avatar Hour podcast, your ultimate companion podcast to the world of Avatar. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Andre.
And today is the day, everyone. SOZI'N'S Comet has arrived on this very special SOZI'N'S Comet 2 episode live stream. We are recapping and discussing the final episodes of Avatar The Last Airbender, 320 Into the Inferno, and 321 Avatar Aang.
Ooh.
Now, wow, look at this. We made it, y'all. As we already said on the live stream, but now we're saying it on the recording. It's very interesting to be like referring to people who are watching us right now and people who haven't watched it yet or just listening to this a few days later. Oh my goodness. But rolling right into it, as always, we have potential spoiler warning for both Avatar Universe TV shows, the Kyoshi novels, Katara and the Pirate's Silver, and Suki Alone.
And as we mentioned above, we are live streaming right now. This is the first time we've ever done a recap with an audience. If you're tuning in now, feel free to drop in any thoughts and theories in the chat window, and we will do our best to keep it up as those come in. If you're listening to this post live stream and you would like to watch the live stream, it is available on our YouTube. And I also believe that the chat replay is also a feature. So you can follow along with the things that people were saying in the chat as we go along. But yeah, it's a pretty big, moment for the podcast, Kayla. How are you feeling about this being our final Atla recap?
There's a lot of emotions, but also just like proud of the fact that we have stuck this out with the podcast and that we have this little family of listeners who, have subscribed to our Patreon, who like to listen to us talk about one of the best shows ever, one of the best universes ever. And that we have a couple people watching us tonight, 6 people right now, I think, in the chat watching us talk about this live, that people are taking time out of their day to listen to us talk. And, and there's a lot of Avatar podcasts out there. So we really appreciate the fact that all of you have stuck it out with us and went on this journey with us as we revisit something that's meant a lot to both of us over the years. So just really proud and just really excited about where we go next, especially as we started doing this recap of Avatar. We suddenly learned that there's much, much, much more coming. So
yeah. I think about that a lot. Very well said, Kayla.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. And we've mentioned it on the show before, but it's a big episode. Let's mention it again. We started this podcast in the throes of the pandemic, in the middle of the biggest civil rights movement that this country has faced in a long time. And we like knew of each other, me and Kayla, but we are not nowhere near as the good friends that we are today. And I largely have to thank the podcast for that. And I'm just so grateful for not only the people tuning in right now, but the people who have listened to the show over the past year and who have shown their support and sent us these amazing theories and just gotten in touch with us to want to get to know us better. And I'm also incredibly thankful that it was an opportunity to, foster such a great relationship with Kayla. And a great working relationship at that. I have not said this on the podcast. Kayla is probably the easiest and most communicative person to ever work with. And I don't say that lightly, because I've worked with a lot of people on a lot of different projects. It's nothing like working with Kayla. In fact, after a week of working with freelance clients and everything, when I get on Avatar, I'm like, oh, this is so nice.
You're making me blush.
It's just, it's the best job in the world, and we love doing it. And it is really crazy to think that we are finishing our recap of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like
Yeah,
it's really insane. And you're right, like this show has had a pretty big impact on us just outside of the podcast, you know. Um and it's crazy to think that, you know, we started with the show and it feels like we're entering a new era with our podcast, you know, like post Ava.
absolutely. And we're hoping to have more of a physical presence. I mean, we just had a Cabbage Con episode, talking about like, just how much this fandom has grown since we started the podcast
Mhm.
too. And I think also a big part of why we started this is because we noticed the Avatar Renaissance, of people,
Yeah.
falling in love with the show all over again, people who hadn't seen the show before getting introduced to it. It's just this podcast isn't just a celebration of the content of the stories that were told. It's also a celebration of the fandom that
Yes.
connects all of us. And yeah, I got nothing else to say. It's just my cheeks are gonna hurt from smiling just thinking about it. Like it's just gonna be fun. So I think we've talked quite a lot about setting all the emotional stakes up personally for the podcast.
Yeah. I guess let's just get straight into it. We don't have
Let's
any
do
news,
it.
so we can start our recap. So here it goes. Season 3, episode 20, Sozin's Comet, part 3, Into the Inferno.
Long ass title.
Before yes, oh my god, yes. Before we can get into the actual recap, my favorite piece of trivia about these two episodes is that um these are, I believe, it could be all 4 of the episodes in Sons of Comet. It could be, I think it's just these 2. These are the only 2 episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender that actually has a recorded orchestra, a live orchestra for the score in the episode. Um
Wow.
yeah. If you go and listen to, there's a great interview out there with Jeremy Zuckerman and I think both members of Break or only one. And they were talking about how they really, really, really wanted a live orchestra for the last, you know, big Sozin's Comet event. And I think Jeremy Zuckerman even told Nickelodeon that him and his track team, like they would pay for the orchestra with their own money if they had to. Um, but it's just my little favorite piece of trivia because I love film and TV music and I love it, but it's also bittersweet because I'm like imagining what it could have been like if we had like a live orchestra for the entire of the series, but it's fine.
I mean,
But yeah,
they really pulled all the stops with it. This has
yes.
some incredible visuals, voice acting, and obviously the music. Like they gave it their all. The writing is at some of its best in the entire series. Like
Yeah.
they really just gave it their all into the finale. And there's so many thoughts we have about this. So let's get into it. If we have any, I don't have any more fun facts. I don't have any fun facts on my end to share. So
No, let's get right into it. So as Zuko and Katara continue on their journey to the Fire Nation, Zuko worries that Aang will lose against Ozai. Although Katara is also worried, she assures Zuko that Aang is going to come back because he has to. This is a very daunting way to open, you know, this episode being the penultimate episode of the series because, you know, there is already like kind of a sense of anxiety and not knowing what's
oh,
going to
what you mean
happen.
anxiety?
Oh my god.
I
Just gonna
had
just
to.
gonna end
I
the live
had
stream real quick. No.
no. Y'all heard my
Sure,
obnoxious
anxiety.
donkey laugh over it. They're gonna
Fine, anxiety.
thank you.
Um, and it's really effective to also kind of feel that from, you know, the characters. Like they too are like, we don't know what's gonna happen, you know. So it like kind of ratchets everything up
And
to
also
this
it
really
like
great
because
level.
showing like Zuko and Katara being anxious themselves about the situation, it also
Mhm.
kind of makes the audience a little nervous too about,
Exactly.
the final showdown. This is what's literally the entire series is building up to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Over at the Fire Nation Palace, Azula is being prepared by her servants before her coronation as the new Fire Lord. However, after almost swallowing a stray cherry pit, Azula believes it to be an attempt to assassinate her. And without a second thought, Azula banishes the servant. We're gonna go slightly out of order in terms of the chronology, just for
That's just how
discussion's
we
sake.
that's just how we normally do it anyway. Sorry to ruin the magic of putting the podcast together, but that's just how it's done here.
Later on, Dai Li agents arrive before Azula in the Fire Lord's throne room, and she berates them for being late, noting that 5 minutes is more than enough time for her to be assassinated, and questions their loyalty since they so easily betrayed Long Feng. And without a second thought, she banishes them as well. Then Lo and Lee approach Azula, questioning her as to why she is banishing so many people. And Azula states that none of them could be trusted and that they would all eventually betray her like Mei and Ty Lee did. When the sisters tell her perhaps it would be best to postpone the coronation, Azula gets even more paranoid and orders them to duel each other in an Agni Kai. But they're not firebenders, so Azula decides to banish Lo while actually pointing at Lee, so now no one knows who's banished. Let's just talk about all of that. So
I feel like I shouldn't laugh at this.
I shouldn't laugh, but
I'm going to.
we've kind of seen hints of Azula's like crumbling confidence with not only the people around her but within herself since the Mei and Ty Lee situation.
We saw in the episode where like she attacks, where they're staying, and she's more unhinged than usual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
definitely coming undone a little bit. But this is like really the culmination of that, like, banishing people left and right, even if it's in her own best interest to have them stay. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. Bina Bunny in the chat says Azula's kind of right. The Dai Li did switch sides quite easily, and I'll give her that. But
the rest of it's a little.
So all the servants, the Dai Li, some Imperial firebenders, and one of the Lo and Lee sisters. But
I shouldn't laugh at this, like I said, because her mental state's gotten worse, and you feel bad for her, but also it's just kind of funny at the same time. Like, it's a very interesting situation to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, it's because there is a little bit of like comedy in it, but I think that's kind of like the writer's way to kind of like diffuse the sadness of Azula slowly losing her mind
at 14.
Yeah.
Like,
but we'll get back to Azula in a little bit.
Yeah, we have plenty more to say about her.
Meanwhile, Sokka, Suki, and Toph make it to the airship base as the ships begin to depart for the Earth Kingdom. Toph earthbends them aboard on one of the ships as it takes off, and they infiltrate the command bridge. And she makes quick work of the guards and helps Sokka and Suki take over the ship. There's a great moment where Sokka says, "Take over the wheel," and Toph's like, "Oh, great idea. Let a blind girl steal the ship." And he's like, "I'm talking to Suki." Which funnily enough, if you go into the trivia for Avatar Wiki, they say that this was Sokka's attempt to cover up the fact that he had once again forgotten Toph was blind. I'm assuming that they got that from like an interview or maybe like Avatar extras, but that's kind of funny.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. I don't know if that's true or not. If you didn't know that, it doesn't really read as that, but it's just funny to consider nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
Sokka has an idea on how to get rid of the rest of the ship's crew, and he poses as the ship's captain, and he orders all the crew members to go to the bomb bay to celebrate a crew member's birthday. Sokka then releases the platform underneath the bomb bay, and all of the ship's crew fall screaming into the ocean. And Sokka increases the ship's speed to catch up to Ozai's flagship. So a little more comedy here. Apparently the two guards that like kind of talk like, "You do know whose birthday it is" and stuff like that. Apparently that's Bryke.
Really?
That's
oh my god, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's really funny. And the poor guard, he's like, it's my birthday, I knew the captain cares.
And then they get dumped into the ocean.
Yeah, and then the guy's like, "Happy birthday." It's classic Avatar comedy.
Oh, I love it though.
All right, so outside the walls of Ba Sing Se, the Order of the White Lotus prepare for battle outside the city's walls. Iroh, feeling the power of the comet, releases a powerful blast of fire that breaks through the wall. Bumi, Piandao, and Paku, and several other White Lotus members invade the city. This is epic. And it's like
the old people.
It's the old people, and it's the first instance of seeing the effect that the comet has on a firebender, because we have never seen anything like what Iroh does, and it's
It
it's kind of funny
also,
to consider how long he spent at the wall when he was like a general versus him taking it down literally within a matter of seconds.
yeah.
So you kind of get an idea of just how more powered up they are, you know.
And also it makes you even more kind of nervous for the fight, between Ozai and Aang. You see
Right.
how powerful Iroh is, and then you're just like, well, shit, like.
Well, shit, what are y'all doing?
Yeah, fuck.
All right. So yeah, they're invading the city. They're gonna take the city back. Back over at the palace, Azula haphazardly tries to get her hair together for her coronation, and after some struggle, she cuts her bangs off as a last resort.
That's when you know she's
Um,
struggling.
that's how you know she's struggling.
She gives
I,
herself bangs.
we make fun, but we were all cutting our own hair at the beginning of COVID, and
Yeah.
to mixed results. So can't judge.
I mean, I didn't touch this, but I almost had a mullet, so
Yeah. Either people let their hair grow out or try to give themselves haircuts.
or
Yeah,
bleached it or dyed it themselves
there's
to
something
mixed
to it.
results.
Yeah. So as Azula looks into the mirror, she sees her mother Ursa reflected behind her, telling her that she would not miss her own daughter's coronation as Fire Lord. Ursa says Azula's use of fear to control people has left her confused, but Azula replies that she had no other choice and could not trust anyone. Taking pride in her power of fear, Azula points out that even Ursa feared her, to which Ursa denies this and says that she loved her. Enraged, Azula throws her brush into her mother's reflection and discovers Ursa was never really there at all, and she begins to sob to herself. So this is a really
Heavy.
pivotal scene with Azula. And it's the fact that we know that this is just a figment of her imagination. But it gives us a look inside Azula of how she actually really truly sees herself when she's not putting on this like show of like, I'll kill you, listen to me, blah blah blah. Like deep down, incredibly neglected and damaged person.
Yeah.
Like,
I also wanted to point out that there is a post that I saw of Azula not looking in mirrors throughout the series.
mm,
Um, because she doesn't even spend like let's see. So I found the post. So it's kind of mini fandom corner here, but it is important.
okay.
Um, throughout the series, Azula avoids mirrors, and in Over the Shot of Ty Lee at the circus shows that she isn't the central focus. When they wipe away the Kyoshi makeup, like she isn't in front of the mirror. She
Mhm.
doesn't spend a lot of time looking at the water. She doesn't spend time looking at the water or even fretting over her appearance because she looks a lot like her mother. And
Mm.
when she looks in the mirror, she doesn't see herself. And this person believes that in the final mirror scene, Azula's brain shifts her own reflection to personify Ursa, someone who's a huge source of instability in her life.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and it's also the fact that I mean she obviously has a lot of unresolved trauma and neglect from Ursa. And again, we don't really know the whole story here in terms of what the treatment between Ursa and Azula was really like, apart from the flashbacks that we get in Zuko alone, which implied that Ursa is kind of at her wit's end with Azula and doesn't know how to just be a mother to her.
mhm.
And it's interesting considering the fandom corner that we had last week talking about how Azula takes on the behavior of her abuser. And it's interesting to see that she's taken on that so early in life too. It wasn't even, something she did after Zuko got banished. Like that's been there very early on, you know. And there could be a lot of reasons why. I remember reading some post that was talking about how Ursa simply favored Zuko as a son because she knew how bad Ozai was in terms of like a ruler, and she knew that Zuko would be next in line, and she wanted to pamper him and teach him the right lessons and make sure that he would grow up to be a very capable leader, and but in turn neglected Azula and being motherly and having all of that weigh on her in that way, so, and which I would quite agree. It's not so much that I don't believe that Ursa played favorites, but I do believe that she saw how terrible her husband actually was and tried to, in a way, course correct how the next Fire Lord would rule the country, So
I didn't
that's
even
really
think of it like
interesting.
that.
Yeah, it's
Well,
really
I mean,
interesting to consider.
with the Search comics, I'm sure that they'll explore a little bit more of that because I know Azula comes back for that. So,
Which, yeah, and I'm very excited to see how that gets addressed.
she goes from where we last see her in the next episode to where she is later.
Yeah.
So,
which I have thoughts about, but that's for next episode.
Yeah, save for the next episode.
Cool.
Good night, Thomas, by the way. Thomas is going to bed, so it's like 2 a.m. where they live.
There.
So
yeah. Good night, Thomas.
Good night. Thanks for watching.
Dedicated.
We really do appreciate your dedication.
All right. So the ship Sokka and the others took control of cannot catch up to Ozai's flagship, and they're afraid that they're too late. And as Ozai uses the comet's power to begin to scorch the Earth Kingdom below, he's quickly interrupted by Aang, who destroys the flagship's engine and catches Ozai's attention. Ozai propels himself toward Aang to fight and taunts him that the universe seems to have delivered him as an act of providence, which is such a great line read by Mark Hamill, by the way.
Still makes me want to roll my eyes, though.
I don't know what it is about it, but it's just a great line read.
I mean, absolutely, but it still makes me want to roll my eyes because it's like in the same realm of like.
Well, yeah, because this is part of Ozai's like belief that it's his divine right to become the Phoenix King and rule the world. So he's like, well, of course the universe would do this, bring me like the only threat that could take me down
on a platter.
On a platter, yeah. Aang says that their fight is not necessary and that Ozai has the power to stop destroying the Earth Kingdom. And Ozai declares, being a drama girl, that he has all the power in the world.
Drama king,
yeah. And threateningly unleashes a fury of comet-enhanced firebending, and he begins the battle.
The Ember Island players could take some notes from him.
literally.
The drama.
I love the idea of them like previewing Ember Island players to Ozai, like as a, because they do that sometimes with like the West End and like the Queen of England or whatever. But I imagine them.
Maybe that's why Diana never made it to West End.
Probably.
Sorry, keep going.
Whole other podcast. But I love the idea of the Ember Island players previewing the show to Ozai and him being like, okay, I have some notes. And he makes everyone sit down on the stage. And he's got like scroll after scroll after scroll of notes, even though his character's only in it for like 3 minutes. Yeah, drama king. As Aang and Ozai duel, Sokka concentrates on stopping the other ships from destroying the Earth Kingdom. And as the fleet begins to rain fire down, Sokka crashes their stolen airship into the others, but it falls short of crashing into all of them. Sokka and Toph are eventually separated from Suki as their ship begins to break apart, and they are forced to continue without her. I remember being so distraught when I saw this as a little kid because I thought Suki died. I thought that was the end. That was it. Yeah, it's this whole thing, especially with Toph, especially because she's not on the ground, so she can't see. And I can't imagine.
Hasn't figured out the metal bending seeing yet.
Right. And I can't imagine being like 11 years old, blind, being tugged by your friend across this flying hunk of metal.
Oh, wait!
Don't know if you're gonna fall off, or I can't.
Wait till we get to the next episode, and like it gets worse.
literally. My God. Back at the palace, Azula's coronation has begun, but it is quickly interrupted by Zuko and Katara. Azula suggests that they settle ownership of the crown in a final Agni Kai. Katara warns Zuko that Azula is trying to take them down separately, but Zuko already knows this and senses that there is something off about her, so he believes he can take her by himself. This will tie into Fandom Corner later, but I love this because this has been such a heavily memed.
So many memes of this part
about from Atla, like it.
It's like up there with That's Rough Buddy and oh god, what's another memed moment from Avatar. I know the
Cactus
fraud,
juice.
the what?
Cactus juice.
Cactus juice, frothing mouth guy. Like that's another one.
It's it's so funny because like Azula is really like tweaking. She's got bangs. She's slurring her words. She's trembling. She's literally like her eyes switching, and Zuko's like, something's off,
Something's
but I
off.
can't really put my finger on it.
Can't put my
It's so funny. Let's see. Shivanji, I hope I'm saying that right. They say, I wish Suki was in her Kyoshi warrior uniform for this last scene. I think I do too. I maybe it might have been like, I guess, too clunky to be like running around the top of a flying metal ship. I don't know. I don't know why they didn't do that, especially because they put Sokka and Toph back in there. I mean, maybe it's just because she doesn't have access
Sokka's
to
in
her
his like
outfit.
she did just break out of prison, so
Yeah, that's probably why.
it still would have been cool though. I agree with you. It would have been cool.
Yeah, I would have. And Zuko and Azula begin their fight, and they are pretty evenly matched. But Zuko counters all of Azula's attacks skillfully before beginning to take on the offensive. And of course, let's address the fiery elephant in the room. This is such an iconic scene from Avatar. Everything between the animation, the music, the emotional stakes of it all. And I just love it so much because it's also a scene that I can't imagine being scored in any other way. Just like the sadness that permeates the scene while you're watching this like really epic display of firebending, and it's like we've never seen anything like this in the show. But it's like if you even stop to think about it for even a second, you realize that this is like brother and sister fighting for the crown, and
Yeah.
it's just such an iconic scene.
They
And
could, I mean, they
ugh,
could have gone with this big epic, battle score, but they went and showed how tragic this scene really is. This
yeah.
fight is.
And I multiple times watching these episodes, I couldn't help but thinking about how this is going to translate into live action series. And I think this is
Yeah.
probably one of one of the ones that I'm really stressed about, because like how could you possibly recreate a scene like this and bring it up to the make it anywhere equal to the emotional resonance that you have watching it in animation, like
Yeah.
like
They have some really big shoes to fill with this.
they
Like,
do. They do.
I mean, I thought about it before with like the live action series, but like make me think about how would they take scenes. Like I didn't even think about like this part right here of, the final Agni Kai. And honestly, I think it'll also be like sadder to watch because like if they do it right, especially with because I'm not sure. I don't remember how old Dante Bosco was when he voiced Zuko during this time. But Great
Mhm.
Lyle is an adult and was an adult when she voiced Azula.
Yeah.
So, assuming that they keep the casting pretty close to the ages of the characters, it's going to make it even sadder and harder to watch
Because they're
if they do
children.
it right. Because you see their ages,
Yeah.
you
That's
see
true.
children, you see and hear children fighting each other. So, I mean, that's a really also I just think about like with the pressure on the actors to pull that scene off. Like,
Oh my
I
god.
can't even imagine that.
And I imagine like I feel like we still don't really know how like, adult this series will be, but I can also just see it being a lot more brutal than it is in the show. And I definitely think you're right. I think, there's a lot that you can get across with an animation in terms of like emotion on the characters' faces, but I think seeing like real people in a scene like this, I think is gonna hit differently. The other thing I stress about is like, Jeremy Zuckerman is not attached to the live action series, and but I really can't imagine this scene without the same music. I just don't know, and I don't even want like a copy of it either, like because then that would just feel disingenuous. So I'm like, I would have no idea how to approach something like that. Like, man, I think about that way too often.
this like it's just that I think now like I feel like I'm fluctuating between like how I feel about the live action series, and this just makes me like more apprehensive about it. Like,
Yeah,
and
and
I do not envy any of the people working on the live action series right now
no, I
at
don't.
all.
I don't either. Um, God, yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Oof.
But talking about the actual fight here, what I also really love about it is that it's really clear that it's not just like two people like punching fire at each other. Like there is a very distinct manner in which Azula is fighting and Zuko is fighting. Azula is like heavily on the offensive, unfocused, crazy with the fire, and Zuko takes everything in stride. I think we did a fan corner one time about how Zuko exhibits all kinds of fighting styles across the different bending disciplines.
Mhm.
There are hints of water bending, there are hints of earth bending and air bending.
I mean,
Um,
he's traveled with every other kind of bender out there, so it's
yeah.
definitely bound to be some influence.
Yeah, and there's also maybe something subliminal there in that, like Aang, he is working to bring balance to the world, and he does that by using the balance of the four elements, you know. So there's a lot that goes into this. I've heard that the fire animation took forever for them
I
to do.
bet.
I think they said that these four episodes, or maybe I think these four episodes took twice as long as just a regular season.
Well, yeah,
And
like
I can't imagine like what the pressure of that was like, because even at that point, like the show had garnered such a following, and I can't imagine like the pressure everyone on the team must have been feeling to get this right. But I think in a lot of respects they did. Like it's both sad, but it's also exhilarating, and I just can't say enough
amazing.
good things about it. It's just utterly
We
amazing.
have a lot to say about these episodes. Like so much so that we are it's spilling into another episode after this about it. So
Yeah. It's crazy. And then Zuko ruins it because he taunts Azula for not using lightning.
which I wanted to slap him through the screen for. Like
And I think you know what, this is young Zuko popping out. I think this is pre-redemption arc Zuko popping out a little bit. Um and it didn't work out the best because of that reason. And Azula, prepares to attack, and instead of attacking Zuko, he decides to attack Katara.
yeah, she
Um
plays dirty.
she plays dirty, and I mean obviously goes against the rules of an Agni Kai. I also wonder if lightning is even allowed in an Agni Kai because it is such a quick.
Maybe amongst like royalty, because remember, I think at this point only royalty knew how to lightning bend.
Right. I still would say that it's not. I think it's not allowed. I would say it's not allowed because also keep in mind, Iroh and Zuko are the only ones who know how to redirect it in Aang. Iroh came up with that technique. So I mean, if there's no acknowledgement of the redirection technique, then a lightning attack would be an instant kill, and then that there wouldn't be anything really settled. So
Good
I would
point. Good
imagine
point.
that lighting is probably like banned from being used in Agni Kai's, but
But
I don't know.
I don't know because like again, only royalty could do lightning bending anyway. So
Yeah.
I don't think that there was much to write in the rules of it unless it was directly impacting royalty here, So
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I also doubt how often members of the royal family were being
Agni
participated in
Agni
Agni
Kai, yeah.
Kai's. Mr. Eli Rooney says, I found it really interesting how the tables have turned. Azula is usually the calm one and super intentional, and Zuko is the hot-headed and aggressive one for no reason, but not in the final Agni Kai. Yeah, that's also something that definitely popped out. Um, and it also gives us like subliminally again gives us a reason because we know why Zuko was that way. We know how he got there, and now we know how he got to the calm and wise person that he is, and that makes Azula's behavior even more depressing to see because we recognize that behavior in season 1 Zuko, so it's just a lot of like subliminal storytelling going on here. But yeah, that's a really good point. um but yeah, so Azula goes after Katara, and um Zuko, in an instant he gets in the way and he tries to redirect it, but it's kind of too late. He has no footing. He has a injury that is dangerously close to his heart, and before Katara can reach him to heal him, Azula begins to attack her furiously, laughing maniacally. So she's full. Azula is, off the rails, gone.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, during this Agni Kai, Aang and Ozai continue to face off. Um, I don't know why, but it seems to be like a common thing that I keep seeing of how like the Agni Kai ruins Ozai and Aang's battle. It makes it less satisfying to watch because of the emotional resonance of the Agni Kai versus, Aang and Ozai is very much like impersonal good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I I can kind of agree, but at the same, I think it's because we've been leading to this for so long. I don't really see if there would have been any benefit in maybe fleshing out Ozai a little bit more by the time we get to them, because we don't necessarily need Ozai to be a fleshed out character at this
We
point.
see how terrible Ozai is as a person and who he is as a person through his
Yeah.
kids, through the
Yeah.
damage he inflicts on his children, as seen in the Agni Kai, and
Right.
obviously before that.
Right. And I think the also just from a television perspective, I think the writers are kind of giving the audience both like the emotional resonance of a fight like the Agni Kai, and just straight up emotional satisfaction with a really epic and high stakes action sequence, so I think we're getting the best of both worlds here. Um but during the fight, Aang counters all of Ozai's attacks, but he's unable to land any of his own. Eventually, Ozai resorts to shooting lightning at Aang, and he dodges the lightning until it catches him by surprise, and he prepares to redirect it right back at Ozai, but Aang sees his face, and at the very last minute, he redirects it into the sky.
Which scares Ozai for a second. You see
It
him like
Yeah, yeah,
scared.
because he didn't know that he could do that.
And
One
also the
and
fact that
two, he was like
Zuko,
gonna die.
but also the fact that he saw Zuko do that. And then he
Right.
realized his son did fulfill his promise and help the Avatar.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
So
But I think this is I oh God, I just love this moment because it puts you in a situation as an audience member like, well, how is this going to end? You had the shot right there. Like, how are we going to end this if he's unable to kill him? So it's a lot. It's a lot, but it's a small moment, but it's really really great to
important.
kind of take a small break from just like heavy action to insert a character beat like that in there. I think that was really well done on the part of the writers. Ozai takes advantage of Aang's mercy and he sends a blast at him. And Aang manages to stop most of the attack, but he's blasted off the top of the rock. And he is eventually overwhelmed and cornered by Ozai. And Earth bends a shield around him. Speaking of, before I go any further, there's also a couple of moments that are awesome in this fight where Aang exhibits, pizza bending that have been inspired by either other characters, like for example like the rock suit with from Toph, or just the way he water bends, being Katara. And just like even the first time he like actually fire bends, and how like, oh, Aang is also benefiting from the power of the comet. Just really great, little hints here and there. And it's also like I'm gonna keep using subliminal because that's where it is, but it's like a retrospective of the series and what Aang has learned to get him to this point. And I think it makes you feel as an audience member that he's come such a long way from the boy in the iceberg. But yeah, so he's eventually cornered by Ozai, and Ozai taunts him and calls him weak and insults the air nomads, saying that such a weak race did not deserve to exist in his world. Fuck you, buddy. He mocks Aang by telling him to prepare to die, and he attacks, and the screen cuts to black. And
so all these episodes were
Inferno.
aired back to back, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I cannot like imagine like having like this is like endgame level of like craziness going on. Could you, I mean, like imagine having to wait another week to watch it? Like I would have, if I were a little kid watching this when it aired, I would have lost my goddamn mind.
No, I couldn't imagine. But yes, all 4 episodes were aired as like a 2-hour movie, essentially.
This is the part where you talked about last time where it's like, I'm locked in my room, do not disturb me.
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. This is worth shutting everybody out for a few hours. Oh my goodness. Well, here we are. We're at the final episode of Atla. I mean, let's get right into it. Right where we left off. Aang tries to hold up his shield of earth as Ozai is just relentlessly burning through all of it with the strength of the comet. Aang's almost passing out from the heat, but as he backs into the rock behind him, he hits his back in just the right spot to unlock his final chakra, allowing him to finally go into the Avatar states in season 2.
And this was just great. This was just absolutely great.
The power of a good chiropractor.
Oh my god.
A rock.
Who needs a chiropractor when you can just slam your back into a rock?
Oh my god. So meanwhile, cut to Sokka and Toph. They're on top of the airships where she metal bends one of them into crashing into the others. And Sokka has this moment of being like, can I ever mention how sweet it is that you invented metal bending? She's like, you can stand and mention it more.
And I loved this part where Toph metal bends the ships, because I think, I don't have confirmation. I think in Legend of Korra, there's a direct callback to that where Lin
goes on the airship and she's trying to stop Amon. Yeah. I didn't even think of that, but that's so cool they did that.
Yeah.
And I also mentioned, like, isn't there a part where like Toph metal bends the door and like makes, that's from that previous episode, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I just made me think of this TikTok where this guy's just yelling at the screen like, this girl, like, at this point these guys have no idea that metal bending's even a thing, and this little girl puts the fear of God into them. She dives to the door, becomes the door, and then destroys their asses. Like, I had to mention it. I think I have it saved somewhere. Maybe I'll put that in the next.
I believe that was a fandom corner at one point. It was probably, I think it
might have been another one of his, because he's been featured on the podcast a few times. Was in our TikTok episode of After Hour. And I think he probably was a fandom corner. I like your funny words.
I like your funny words.
As he yells at the screen, he just yells at the screen.
My favorite is when he does Legend of Korra ones, and
he's thirsting after everyone.
Thirsting after
he does that too.
Imagine seeing this hunk of a man doing Tai Chi in the streets in the middle of the night. Oh my god, I love him. All right,
I forget the username, but we appreciate you, whoever does that. So, but the fun moment's over as the guards manage to spot them, forcing Toph and Sokka to jump over the side of the airship. Sokka manages to land on the platform, breaking his leg in the process. Brutal. And the only thing that's tethering Toph to the airship is Sokka holding her hand.
Oh my god.
Like, this is terrifying to watch. Even if you know what happens, you're still watching with bated breath as this all unfolds.
Did you think at any point the writers were considering killing one of the gang?
I don't want to think about that. Okay. No, I'm not okay. No.
Wow.
You're evil. I hate that.
I don't know. I mean, logically, you'd be thinking it, right? Like,
maybe.
If this was another show,
someone would have died.
I think someone may have died, and I would probably say Sokka. But that's Legend of Korra. Anyway.
I hate you. I hate you so much right now.
We come.
This is gonna be our last episode of Avatar, and our last episode of the podcast. We're breaking up after this. I can't.
Kayla's like, I stuck around this long. I'm finished.
Ugh. More guards then start to attack, and things just get worse. Sokka manages to lose both his space sword and his boomerang trying to save themselves. I
That's
mean,
the real character death.
he means managed to lose both his space sword and his boomerang, and manages to knock two guys off of the ship with using like just one hand and the other one holding Toph. So can we just like appreciate the badassery of the moment right there, please and thank you. But that was even
Also,
worse.
I love, sorry, I just wanted to point out that it was only until I rewatched the episode this morning where I noticed that Asaka did not actually kill those Fire Nation soldiers, that they were like attached by a tether. I always thought before that he just sent those Fire Nation soldiers down
to their deaths.
But they're like hanging by their waist off the edge of this
just
ship.
dangling like ragdolls. Anyway. But what's even sadder is that, like, you know, Space Sword we still feel kind of sad about because Space Sword has only been around for half the season.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Boomerang has been around since the beginning. And that also was that was a major character death for me. That was the character death, okay? Was Boomerang.
The Space Sword was really cool.
But Boomerang doesn't have the same emotional attachment, okay?
I know.
The boomerang didn't come back. Okay. That's just painful. They're always supposed to come back and they don't.
Yeah.
And that's what Sokka says as more soldiers start to show up as their grip starts to slip. I don't think Boomerang is going to come back, Toph. Like, these kids were preparing to die. Like,
multiple times, by the way. Sokka at multiple points is like, if we get through this, I'll let you know what happens next. Or like, I don't think we're gonna make it, like multiple times. Like Sokka is prepared to die.
He kisses Suki goodbye.
Yeah.
You know? And like
these kids were really willing to risk it all.
Which it makes it just makes it like this is worse than a character death to me. Is just seeing them, like seeing these kids, like it just I can't even imagine how scary it must have been, especially for Toph at that moment. Like we talked about before, she can't see. She's dangling hundreds of feet in the air.
Yeah.
The only thing that's between her falling to her death and the Fire Nation soldiers is holding on to Sokka. Yep. And him telling her, like, I don't think Boomerang is going to come back. And she basically is just saying goodbye that way. Oh, God, I'm going to get emotional. Like, that's not the part that choked me up, though. Actually, no, this was one of the parts that choked me up. I checked it twice. I must be a fat liar if I keep saying that. Oh, I don't get really that emotional and sad over shows. Yeah, it's fine. But before we get too sad about things going on, Suki saves both of their asses by ramming the other airship into theirs. Cut back to Aang and Ozai. Aang has unlocked the Avatar state and grabs Ozai by his stupid little goatee. Love. Aang proceeds to, as the kids say, open up a can of whoop ass on him. Yes. And this is the scariest.
That's what the kids are saying.
This is the scariest thing that we have seen Aang do in the Avatar state, period. That was my medication alarm. So just so you all know, I'm a depressed person.
Wow, Kayla. Wow.
I'm depressed. Okay. I got to take medication.
At the top of the Google Doc. It's
we haven't recorded this late in forever. Okay.
That's true.
Oh my God. Anyway, this is the scariest you've ever seen Aang in the Avatar state. Period. He understands he knows how to bend all the elements, and he's just, like you see all like the elements circling him as he's flying above Ozai. Avatar Wiki has this fun fact about the part where it says that like the elements show up in reverse order from the opening of the show.
Oh, love that.
So it's like the elements in his like that sphere that he has where he's flying above Ozai, it's in order from earth, water, air, fire. So
that's really cool.
Reverse order of what we see in the intro. So fun facts.
And there's also that moment where like the chunks of rock that are flying around him, he like shrinks them down, which is not a thing that we see ever. Like he literally alters the molecular information and makes the rock smaller. That is insane when you think about it. That is like beyond like just regular earthbending. No. Like you don't see other earthbenders in the show like take a boulder and make it smaller. That's insane to me.
No. Oh my god. Cut back to Ba Sing Se right as we're seeing this epicness unfold. The old people are successfully liberating Ba Sing Se, just effortless, almost effortless. Just a bunch of badassery all around. Just round of applause for them. Iroh approaches the palace and burns the Fire Nation's banners, successfully liberating the city.
I love this.
Just amazing symbolism.
Yeah.
Uh,
I almost wish that we got to see Iroh be a little more badass, but I'll take
you
it.
know what? I'll take what we can get, that this was good. Back to, well, I guess, is it even an Agni Kai anymore if one of them's out down for the count? We're just gonna go back to the Fire Nation where Katara tries to run to Zuko, but Azula's keeping her from reaching him. She says, "Oh, we'll just have like she makes a joke about like, oh, we'll just have the family physician look after Zuzu." Like, just craziness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, sorry. I lost my train of thought on the paper. We have notes because I cannot be trusted to recite this off the top of my head at all.
I can't either. Could anyone? Could anyone?
No. But as she runs away from Azula's attacks, she finds a way to stop her. Mm-hmm. After using the water from the grates below, she manages to Azula manages to get over to her, and then she traps herself and Azula in a block of ice, where she swims around her and chains her to the grate and ends the fight. After subduing Azula, she runs back to Zuko and starts to heal him, and he's okay. Everyone can relax now. She then helps him up, but Azula, meanwhile, has completely shattered. Yeah. She firebends from her mouth. She's screaming. She's sobbing. And as Zuko and Katara are just looking upon her in pity. Like, yeah, it's heartbreaking.
One quick little thing that I love about the scene, again, it's just a technical thing, but when Azula is like on top of the rooftop and like shooting lightning at Katara, they animate like this weird like camera shaking, and I love it. It just makes the whole thing, it's the details. It makes the whole thing more dynamic and just like more unstable. Love that bit. And second of all, we can also just point out how overall it took very little time for Katara to overcome Azula, and we also now see why Azula was splitting them up, because that would have been a very quick battle if it was both of them. Yeah. So yeah, but this is I like that, after all this discussion that we've had about Azula, I did feel like really, I felt bad for her by the end of it.
You're supposed to.
I definitely think you're supposed to. I think, however, first time watchers, I think the emotion they probably feel is like ambivalent, because you
don't know how to feel.
You don't know how to feel about it, because like, of course, you're not really rooting for Azula, but when you remember that she's a kid and you see like this, complete shattering of a person, you're just like, oh, wait a minute, like maybe I shouldn't have hated her this whole time. Maybe she's a product of Ozai,
Yep.
And that's not to excuse or gloss over the terrible things that she's done, but I definitely think that the way we're supposed to feel about Azula by the end of the series, I think there is a giant question mark by the end. And I like that. I like that it's indefinite, the way we're supposed to feel about Azula. Like, it's not, they don't give you one clear answer, and it leaves a bunch of questions that get discussed in fandom. Like, should she be redeemed? Could she be redeemed? Would Azula, turn out like this if Ursula gave her more attention? Like, all of these, like, things that we think about as a fandom, and in reaction to this very complex character. But yeah, just very, very depressing.
Yeah, I just want to bring up real quick, so this might be fandom corner part 2 of this episode, but there's a really good post about this, that she's she was like, she would have set the world on fire and laughed over the broken carcass of her brother, but she was 14.
Yeah.
And one person wrote on this post that one of the show's strengths is that they didn't shy away from what a horrible tragedy it was. Even though she was clearly a villain, she did unspeakably awful things. The scene is still framed as sad. There was no celebrating. They just look at her sadly.
Yeah. Yeah.
The kids show had so much respect for its viewers and their ability to understand the complexity of the situation. Is what makes Avatar great. So
Absolutely. Yeah, you're completely right. Azuka and Guitar aren't like, yay, we did it. Like they're like, we did it, but at what cost? And even after Azula fatally wounds him, I still think Zuko is very sad for what he had to do. I think he feels remorse over what he had to do to restore balance to the world. Like I definitely, I don't know. It's again just a big question mark on how we're supposed to feel by the end of it with Azula.
Absolutely. Well, pivoting right back to Aang and Ozai, the fight escalates. There are multiple times that we see Aang could have absolutely annihilated Ozai, multiple times,
Yeah.
with some of the most powerful and impressive bending we have seen in this entire series, period.
Yes.
After extinguishing Ozai's rocket flames, I don't know what the best way to describe it as, just, Aang brings him down to earth and traps him. Now, this part gives me chills because we hear Aang's voice echoed with all of the avatars of the past. This just gives me the shivers just thinking about like the power behind that voice,
Yes.
Like he says to him that Fire Lord Ozai, you and your forefathers have devastated the balance of this world, and now you shall pay the ultimate price. Now, just remember with like all of those echoing voices, and he's just at his most powerful and scary that we've ever seen him. Like chills, literal chills. We see him summon all of the elements. Is this going to be a killing blow? But Aang suddenly pulls himself out of the avatar state and lands in front of his enemy, the person who has caused him, his friends, and the world so much pain, and chooses not to kill him.
Yeah.
Ozai then snarls at Aang that even with all of his cosmic power, he is still weak. And then when Aang turns away for a second, Aang senses that Ozai is about to attack. Thank you, Toph, for teaching him that, and stops him, trapping his arms in the earth. And then, after touching Ozai's chest and his forehead, Aang closes his eyes and implements the gift that the lion turtle gave him, an energy bends. It's one of the most striking visuals of the entire series, period.
Yeah.
As Aang takes away Ozai's bending. And I just noticed this years later with the red and the blue energy color clashing. We see Aang Aang being blue and Ozai being red. We see like the red start to swallow up Aang. And the lion turtle warned him that he could destroy himself in the process.
Yeah.
So we literally do see him almost die doing this. I also want to point out that the blue is very reminiscent of when he first left the iceberg at the very beginning of the series.
Yes.
So
yeah, and it also gave me Rava and Batu vibes as well.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially with what, probably where they got some of that from for Korra, With Ozai now powerless, Aang leaves him alone as he uses his avatar state not to continue the battle, but to put out the fire. The comet disappears over the horizon, and Aang reunites with Toph, Suki, and Sokka at one of the airships. And now we got to switch in this dramatic, amazing moment to Suki being like, did you kill him? He's like, I'm still alive. Like, that part made me laugh. I forgot that happened. And Aang explains how he took away Ozai's bending, and Sokka proceeds to mock the loser lord or the Phoenix King of getting his butt whooped, which I would have been funnier if they were allowed to swear. It was like his ass whoop or something.
Literally. So, I mean, what do we think as this is being the solution to, not having to kill Ozai?
Well, considering that if Ozai had died, he would have been a martyr for his supporters,
True.
So True. I think this is probably the best possible outcome of the situation. Like if Ozai wanted to, if you know, I'm sure Ozai probably thought of this before he going into it. It's like, yo, I mean, I'm gonna make it, but if I don't, it's still gonna work out for me because there are people who are going to avenge me. Like I have a bunch, you know.
Right.
So I'm like, I'll go down. I'm either going to go out in this amazing display and take over the world, or I'm going to go down in a blaze of glory and everyone's going to remember me.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, let's see. We got something from Bina Bunny. They say I have seen so many takes about how Aang not killing Ozai is one of the weakest parts of the series, but the writers choosing to respect Aang and the Air Nation's Buddhist beliefs is one of the most brilliant parts of the series for me. Yeah, definitely agree there. I I think listen, I think killing Ozai is what everyone expected, and that's not what Avatar is. There are giant there are like a plenty of examples of Avatar, like, you know, completely flipping those stereotypes or those familiar story beats on its head completely. And we've talked about it over the year and a half that we've been talking about Avatar. um I don't think that killing Ozai is what the show needed. It's not what the show wants to say. And it's not so much like a I mean, it's definitely a morality thing for Aang, but I just think it would not have brought us the same satisfaction to, you know, end the series with the corpse of Ozai. You know, I think it is more impactful to see the person that has caused so much pain in this world be stripped of the power that gave him that ability to cause that pain. You know, I think that's why it hits different. And we can have all the discourse about how this impacts um the future of the universe. Like
How that
I've said on
bleeds
the
into
show,
Amon, you
I've
know,
said on
in
the show
Korra.
that this possibly directly impacted the rise of Amon and Yukon and all of that, but as the theme of the story, this completely tracks for what Avatar is about, you know. So
And for the consequences within the universe, every action that someone as impactful and as important as the Avatar is going to have some kind of ripple effect, no matter what. And this is the best course of action for Aang.
exactly. And
So,
I like that. I like that this is it's also a very inventive solution to the problem, just from a writing standpoint.
and
um
also, oh, sorry, I'm going to cut you off.
no, it's okay. Just because, you know, we never really knew beforehand that this was something that could be done, you know. And I think that's where a lot of people get caught up with the whole energy bending thing, because for some people it came too late in the show. And you know, those are pretty reasonable criticisms.
Yeah,
I kind of feel that way, but it's I think it's just because it's so emotionally satisfying just how everything panned out. I don't really care at this point. Maybe the same way I would care for other shows, because I feel like the show earned this. I feel like everything in the show and how the show ended was earned and it made sense, you know. And that's the difference between Avatar and a lot of shows, is that a lot of the way shows decide to wrap up their entire series feels unearned. And that's where you get that emotional dissatisfaction, because you don't feel like anything that's happening tracks with what the story has been telling you, and nothing feels earned. But this is the exact opposite situation here. So yeah, yeah, it's definitely I think it's a great point of discourse for the fandom, because it leads into some really
absolutely.
interesting places. But overall, I'm pretty square with it.
Yeah. I also wanted to point out with the uh what was I gonna say? It's also similar with Korra's ending, final with her final fight with Kuvira.
Mhm.
She doesn't kill her either. Like
Yep.
it also involves energy bending, and she sits and talks with Kuvira for, well, we don't know how long she sat and talked with her, which obviously would not work out as well for like an Aang and Ozai fight, but
Yeah,
showing like, 'cause he tried talking, he did try. We'll give him that,
Aang
but
did try.
showing like different ways to end a final battle, you know, and it
Exactly.
still feels satisfying. So
Yeah.
just want to put that out real quick. So it's over.
Yeah.
Like,
And that
it's
final
over
like
pretty
pan
much.
over Aang as like his theme plays, and it's the aptly titled episode Avatar Aang, you know.
Absolutely. He's really come
So
into his own as the Avatar.
yeah.
And God, I'm so proud of him.
And you feel that. And you don't ever really even need anyone to be like, you grew up into a really fine avatar, or you're the avatar that you were meant to be. Like, we don't need any of that. We're told through just how everything is shown to us. And I love that.
Mhm.
Show, don't tell.
Exactly, exactly. So, cut to some time after the battle. Zuko is clearly still healing from his injuries, and he reunites with May, who helps him get ready for his coronation. And I guess they're back together now. She's like, "Don't ever break
Yeah.
up with me again." Like,
Yeah.
that did make me laugh. That was kind of a sweet moment. As much as we have some mixed feelings about May and Zuko's relationship, that was kind of cute. I'll give him that. And we see everyone back together, even the boulder and the hippo being noticed in the crowd. I found that earlier. The swamp benders, the Kyoshi warriors, and we find out that Ty Lee has joined the Kyoshi warriors. They became prison buddies,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Ty Lee has taught them chi blocking. So good for them.
Yeah. I also love, it's kind of sad, but it's also funny of like the procession, and it almost represents all four elements, and the four elements are fire, water, earth, and swamp.
Exactly. I was literally gonna point that out. I was like, it's in my notes of like pointing out, oh look, the crowd is almost all the elements represented, and
Yeah.
Florida.
Yeah. Florida. Yeah.
So he kept on referring to as the Florida Man episode.
The four elements:
Yeah.
water, fire, earth, swamp.
Aang and Zuko then reflect on the last year of their lives, which is crazy that all the things that we just saw happened in the span of a year. You know,
Yeah.
about a year. Like that's a lot can happen in a year. Just saying. Now I lied in the notes here, as some patrons will see. I didn't cry at any other part in this episode. I cried at the like got choked up during when Toph was dangling over the edge. So I will be honest here. But this also got to me,
Mhm.
seeing like Aang and Zuko reflecting on their newfound friendship and how they're going to rebuild together, and like especially as like a big Korra fan and seeing how the world's changed because of their friendship,
Yeah.
like it got me real good.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also, it's great too, because I'm rewatching Legend of Korra with my boyfriend, and we got to the part where they're talking about how Aang and Zuko were such great friends, and they changed the world together. And yeah, I feel the same. Like it was definitely like it's just an emotional full circle moment to think that where they started at the beginning of the series versus where they end up now, world leaders.
Yeah, like what? Like how old Zuko again? I keep forgetting. Like,
He's like 16, 17 at this point.
and Aang's like 12, so they're
Yeah.
just 13
Yeah.
and changing the world together. So
Which
proud of
which
them.
brings up another mini fandom corner, because you sent me this and I cackled, where it said like Ozai was really thinking that he was going to take over the Earth Kingdom, and he gets defeated by a 13-year-old vegan, which I love, by the way. And we also can't not talk about another great heavily memed moment of people from Bossing Say being like, is that Lee from the tea shop?
That was my favorite part about Avatar TikTok. That was like my first introduction to Avatar TikTok, was the whole leave from the tea shop thing, which I was going to bring up later because they're, when they're back in Bossing Say,
Yeah.
Zuko is crowned Fire Lord to a cheering crowd. He promises a new era of love and peace, and promises to restore the honor of the Fire Nation. I mean, hey, if anyone's able to restore one's honor, it's gonna be Zuko.
Yeah.
Later, Zuko visits his father in prison and essentially tells him that he's lucky to even be alive right now. But he's not here to mock Ozai. He's here to get answers. Where is his mother? And we don't get that answer until several years later. So, okay, in the fandom universe, I should say,
Yeah.
which we will find out eventually. But I do also want to appreciate the joke they made in Korra about that moment. Okay,
Yes.
we'll get into more of this later. That's
Love a bit of self-awareness.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? I do have to say this. I'm fine with how they teach this. I think, and hear me out, I think it would have been a lot more impactful if instead of going to see Ozai, Zuko went to see Azula. And the last words we hear Zuko say to Azula is, "We're going to find mom." And because I think while I love the big question mark that we talked about with Azula, I think Zuko going to see her and us getting a little bit more context about where she ended up after all of this, I think could have been just a little more impactful in terms of the emotional satisfaction of seeing where Azula ends up as well. So
I feel robbed. Now I feel robbed.
I am not here to tell Bryke how to write TV, but I that's something I've always thought about. Like what it would have been like if we got that tease by Zuko telling Azula that we're going to find mom. So it's because it hints more. I love when final episodes do this where they tease like that there will be a continuing story even if we don't get to see it. And we get that a little bit with Ozai, definitely. But I think that would have definitely been at least given us some peace of mind that Zuko intends to help Azula, right? Instead of we don't know what, like we don't know if he just abandoned her, like not thinking about the comics right now.
We're not pretend the comics don't exist for a second.
Yeah, so and definitely like that could have also been played off as like Zuko wanting to do that, not because like he wants to find his mom, but like as a means to help Azula, get over this trauma that she has and put her on the right path. Like I think that could have been interesting, but
we'll get to the comics eventually. I know you keep saying it.
I was like 8 years old when they wrote this, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, back to Ba Sing Se. Iroh is peacefully playing his horn, and Zuko is just serving them all tea. Leave from the tea shop's back, y'all. Sokka tries to capture the moment with the painting, which they all roast him for, and Toph makes one last blind joke for all of us to enjoy.
For all time's sake.
For all time's sake. And then I start crying. I think that the theme that plays at the end is the Avatar's love. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that whole do like that. Oh, it's so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And Aang takes a moment to look at his family and walk outside to the sunset. Fuck.
I just got emotional because it's the same music that we use for our show. So
Katara joins him and they give each other a look before hugging each other tightly. They look at the sunset together before sharing a kiss. The camera pans up and the series ends. And everyone starts falling, including me. Fuck. It's just so good. I can't even like, I'm imagining this in my head. I'm just reading from my notes and remembering, and so many emotional stuff going on here.
And I love that we also were just left with this image of Aang and Katara together, not them talking about how much they love each other or look how far we've come. Like I love that they don't insult us in a way by like giving us that expository stuff. Like we don't need any of that. We know how far they've come. We know how much they love each other, and all we needed to see was that, and I love that that's where the show ends. It begins also with Katara and Aang, and it ends with Katara and Aang.
It's like a peaceful, like in a peaceful world now, and like just, and then also just how they like redo that with the finale of Korra too. Like it's it's just so beautiful. It is such a ridiculously satisfying ending for a show of that scale. Like they more than stuck the landing. It is just, I mean, thinking of a lot of really good shows out there that ended, or at least started good and couldn't stick the landing. Game of Thrones. But like, if the ending isn't good, then a lot of people won't emotionally invest in the show, which is why I don't think I'm going to watch Game of Thrones anytime soon, because I know how it ends. And I'm just like, is it even worth the emotional investment to get into it? But this does not happen with Avatar. Maybe that's also another reason why people still love it so much after all these years, because they told a full story. They were respectful to all of the characters' development. And, you know, there's nothing like it. And there's nothing else like it. There's never going to be another one like it, which,
Yeah.
and I'm glad for it. And, it's just, I have so much more to say, but we have another episode to record of this. So I'll save that for later.
And let me just be the one to say, writing a good series finale is extremely difficult. A lot of shows don't get it right. A lot of them don't. Like, a lot of the times you feel left with this really empty feeling and you don't know quite how to feel about it. But I mean, this is a great example, like you said, about respecting the characters, respecting the story, respecting the world that the story takes place in. Like, it's not enough to just be good at writing. You have to fall in love with the world and the characters. And it's so palpable to me how much the creators loved Avatar and wanted to end it in the best possible way. And while I have things that I think about going different ways, the Zuko and Azula thing at the end, I still would not change it in any way, And again, that live action series is gonna be up against
this,
and I'm very anxious about it. There you go, Kayla.
Thank you. I'm so glad it caught on.
But not talking about that right now. But yeah, it's just every time I watch the ending, I'm just so left with this overwhelming emotion of satisfaction. Like, yes, this is how it was always supposed to end, and I love that. So
and everyone starts crying as they see as they see like the end show up in the sky, like me.
Yeah, because you think about just not only how far the characters have gone, but just the journey. You feel like you've been on the journey with them.
Exactly.
And that's the thing, though, because if you're not able to connect with your audience as you're telling a story and really connect with them, you could have the best series finale ever. But if the audience doesn't feel like they know the characters and know what they've been through, excuse me, it's not going to be satisfying. And they put in the work every single episode to make sure that we not only related with these characters, but we understood them, we were intrigued by them, we sometimes loved to hate them, and it just shows how much care and attention was put into this, and I could go on and on about why these final 4 episodes feel so satisfying, are such a perfect ending to a story like this, because there are so many moving parts of this world and of this story that it was incredibly easy to fuck it up, but they completely, in my opinion, stuck the landing. So
period.
Yeah, so that is our last recap of Avatar: The Last Airbender, y'all. So we're not done yet. Let's move on to the Azula Bell counter. It's currently sitting at 53. I'm so mad. So for season 3, episode 20, we got 2 Azula Bells, and for season 3, episode 21, we got 1. So let's hear it up for 3 Azula Bells. Ding, ding, ding. And the official Azula Bell counter for the entire series of Avatar is at 56. Let's talk about our predictions.
What was your prediction on
at the beginning of the season?
What did you predict?
I predicted 71. So Azula let me down. Kayla predicted 55. This bitch predicted 55. She was one off, people. One off.
I got lucky last season too. I was 2 off last season?
You were like 2 or 3 off last. I was so mad. I was so mad. And I also went through the same thing of like, I was at 55 and I'm like, if she gets it right on the money, I swear to God. And then I heard another one. I was like, okay, I'm still mad though. I just cannot believe.
There's no prizes here, but I still get the bragging rights, which I can express to like maybe 2 other people in my life. So
we'll rebrand you the Psychic Hour podcast. That's what we'll do next season. Not the dab. Okay.
Once we did
congrats,
5
Kayla.
fandom corners, we got one more fandom corner left.
Yeah, congrats, Kayla. You win nothing except for bragging rights. What have we got for fandom corner?
So we did like 5 throughout the episode, but we do have one more, which Andre, I think you have the last fandom corner of Avatar.
Yes, I do. I probably should have had it ready. Oh, I have to come over here.
This one, we figured we'd end on a funny one because we talked a lot about heavy, deep stuff, but especially with the stuff with like particularly involving Azula and the final fight with Ozai and things like that. So this one's definitely a lot more of the lighthearted side of fandom corner that we've had pop up occasionally, especially after particularly heavy episodes.
Yep. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen here in a second.
I am very good at stalling. Look at me go.
Look at you. Thanks for vamping.
No
All right,
problem.
so this is our first one. Oh God, sorry. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why it's so zoomed out.
We'll just read it.
Zuko, there's something off about her. I can't explain it, but she's slipping. Azula in the matchmaker from Mulan. You will never bring your family honor. Love that. But
she gave herself her own bangs, guys.
Yeah, but then I have to show this one. This is probably my favorite. I'll show you lightning. Ka-chow.
Ka-chow.
No, not the Owen Wilson voice.
Hate this.
I love this. I was cackling. I swear to I was.
I like Andre sent this to me, and I just replied dead, and then I replied, I hate this. So, like, so we have a lot of fandom corners.
An insane amount of luck. You two could look like me. Ka-chow.
With a little bit of rusties, a little bit of a mental breakdown, and cutting your own bangs, and an insane amount of luck. You can look like me. Ka-chow.
Oh, God.
Anyway,
but yeah,
that's fandom corner for Atla. I think we ended on a good note with that. We peppered it throughout the episode, and then we finished it off with a terrible meme. I love it though. So on to our recommendations for our final Atla episode. In case you forgot, it's our final Atla episode.
Yeah, in case you forgot, in case we haven't mentioned it a couple of times.
So what do you want to say yours, or do you want me to say mine first?
I'll say mine. I'm gonna recommend the Netflix movie Single All the Way. This is the gay Hallmark movie everyone's talking about. It's super cringy, but it's also really good fun. I love me a cheesy Christmas movie, and this is definitely it.
It's got Jennifer Coolidge.
Yeah,
they know their audience.
Love Jennifer Coolidge. They absolutely do. And if you like it and you are also fans of the drag queens, Trixie and Katya, I would highly encourage you to, after you see Single All the Way, to go to YouTube, type in Queens Who Like to Watch Single All the Way, and just watch their reactions. It's just priceless. Please go do this favor for yourself. But yeah, Single All the Way on Netflix. Check it out this holiday season.
Oh my God. And my recommendation for this episode is making/following Spotify playlists for your favorite characters and whatever fandom you're a part of. I think it's kind of an underrated way of consuming fandom. There's fan art, there's fan fiction, but not a lot of playlists that get talked about. I think it's a really interesting way to kind of show how you relate to the character, or what sort of music makes you think of a certain person from a show or a book or a movie that you really like. So lately I've been absolutely obsessed with Arcane, in case y'all forgot. So I contributed to the Vi Caitlyn ship playlist with my own, because I'm like, I saw a lot of really good ones. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna one-up them, add some more that weren't on these playlists before. But I think it's just a cool way to interact with fandom, and like kind of build your own soundtrack for a particular person. It's a cool way to interact. That's all I have to say about it.
Love that.
You know what? Maybe that would be actually kind of a cool side note. That would be a cool like episode or live stream or something of us coming up with playlists for Atla and Korra characters.
Oh, that could be really cool, actually.
So
I like that. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned for that. Oh my goodness. And as always, if you'd like some extra Avatar Hour in your life, consider subscribing to our exclusive Patreon at patreon.com/the Avatar Hour podcast for benefits, including access to our Google Docs, ad-free Avatar Hour, and of course, our flagship benefit, the Avatar After Hour. Along with this episode, as I previously alluded to, we'll be releasing a new installment of the Avatar After Hour, where we will be wrapping up and reflecting our thoughts and feelings on the entire series of The Last Airbender on our Patreon. However, if you're unable to join us on Patreon, it's okay. We will have it be posted as a regular episode 69, on the Tuesday after Christmas.
69. My God.
I mean, I've been waiting for this for so long to say that.
Oh my God. Well, on that note, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for all for sticking staying here and watching us just babble on for how long have we been on? For almost 2 hours.
No, seriously, thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you to everyone who tuned into this special live stream episode. Definitely not the last recap. We will be live streaming.
No,
this was insanely fun.
As someone asked earlier, we are doing Korra. We are doing other comic books. We're gonna keep going, guys. We have Avatar Studios to keep up with too. Like we're gonna keep going.
yeah, we're definitely gonna keep going. It's not the end of the podcast. It is the end of Avatar: Last Airbender, and it is also the end of season 3 of the Avatar Hour podcast. But do not worry, we will be back before you know it with season 4. And if you want to know what we're going to be starting with next season, definitely stay tuned on our social media, on Twitter at Avatar Hour and at the Avatar Hour podcast on Instagram and Facebook. But yeah, that wraps it up for us. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you all very soon.
Happy holidays.
Yes, happy holidays. Have a happy, safe holiday for sure.
Oh my goodness. And we already said his name, and I'm Kayla.
Perfect ending. Clunky.
Perfect. Discombobulated, disjointed. At this point, if you forgot our names, that's a problem. Oh my goodness. Bye, everyone. Thank you again for tuning in. We really appreciate all of you showing up tonight and joining us and celebrating this amazing universe that we love so much. Yes. So thank you. We're seeing your comments roll up now. That's why we're staying on a little longer, just to say goodbye to you. So you guys say goodbye to us. So
all right, everyone.
All right.
Everyone have a nice night, and yeah, we'll see you guys later. All right.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All right. I just ended the stream.